Mine's found to ring. Oh, well.
So I'd like to put in the apologies from Jan Jones and Frank Zulin and Joanne Linton and Ken Anderson. And our first thing we'll put on is the challenges for last month, which was the macro. So let's have a look at that.
Okay, I will share my screen.
Thank you.
Right, Gary.
Well done, Gary. Thank you.
Well done. Yeah, beautiful.
Well done.
Oh, well. I'm going to get better at this. It's slipping. They were gorgeous. Oh, dear. Really
we had quite
beautiful.
a few, didn't we?
Oh, yeah, they were lovely. Yeah.
Well, it's good to see the variety, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. How many were of your flowers, Jenny?
Well, there were 4 that I took, and I noticed that there were a few of those other ones were mine. Well, highly likely to be mine.
Yeah. And the insects, they were lovely.
Yeah.
I know
Your
they did-
flies, Will?
No, I didn't have any.
Oh, Will.
Didn't have any flies?
No,
The photos.
they're hibernating.
So for Graham's sake, what we do every month is have a competition and then a challenge. And the challenge is just to expand her horizons and give something a go without any evaluations, apart from appreciating the different interpretations that people have, which is always a bit of fun.
Well, I'd have to say, actually, the standard of those was really good, though. That I mean, I haven't done a lot of macro, but yeah, they were very, very good.
Oh, thank you.
Nice pictures.
And actually, it brings me on to the topic of our excursion. I talked to Theo this morning, and he's going to run a macro workshop at my farm. And he's currently in Queensland at the moment and hoping to get back. So on the basis that we have visitors to our home and he returns, then I've tentatively booked him for the 30th of August. So hopefully the flowers will be looking very full of spring. And he was suggesting that we do early afternoon. So I was going to... Did somebody say something?
Yeah, I didn't quite catch what you said. He suggested we do what?
We're going to do it on the 30th of August,
Yeah.
early afternoon. So I suggest, yeah, about 1:30 in the afternoon. I'll give the details to Lynn and she can send it out to everybody. So hopefully, with COVID permitting, we can have an indoor session where Theo will sort of give us an idea about macro.
I can't just get this. Good.
Yeah, and then you can have a wander around the property and practice your macro shots.
Yeah.
Brilliant. That sounds great.
I'm trying not to have it in my head. Yeah, it's good.
Okay, Gary, maybe we'll go on to look at the evaluations from and the feedback from David. There's some pretty detailed feedback from David on a couple of the shots, which I'm not sure Gary will read all of it out, but it'll certainly be published.
Well, my aim is to read it all out.
Okay.
See what happens.
Okay, thank you.
I'll share my screen again. Okay, these are all David Burren's comments, not mine, so don't shoot the messenger. This one's called Aged Grass Tree. Lots of stories, even eyes and a face in that tree. The leftmost branch merges with the background a bit. I wonder if you move the camera slightly lower, bend down slightly, if the separation would have helped. Not everything needs to be taken from head height. Around the lake. Be conscious of where the viewer's eyes may go. The path leads us off to the left, but then we run out of picture and head off to the right looking at the scene. The people on the right are muted in monochrome, but definitely contrasty enough to grab our attention. You could fine-tune the level here. The central post is fairly upright, but a 1/2 degree tilt to the right would make the background feel more natural. Ball of fire. I don't think the person on the right is really contributing to the image. You could experiment with crops. I think a vertical crop with the sun on the center line would work great here, leading us up into those clouds. Yes, you lose the interesting side sky bits, but I think the result is worth it. There's always going to be haze with shots like this. Hopefully you'll learn. There's always going to be haze with shots like this. Hopefully your lens was as clean as it could be, and it can be worth removing UV, etc. filters for it. Calm. The reflected green blob on the lower right, maybe down here,
Ah,
and internal lens reflection of the sun maybe is unfortunate. It's worth checking around the edges of our photos before we before we finish, as we often don't want things there, like the steps rail, grabbing our attention and leading the brain out of the frame. Cowra Gardens. Compositionally, this works well with the weaving path taking us into the scene, but be very careful with your horizon. Here the camera was tilted to the left, making the ponds on the right. I'm not sure this has got the same, it's the right photo, I'm not sure. Ponds on the right, they should be flowing out of the frame. I think even a 1.5 degree tilt back to the left would make it feel more settled. I think the what I just read out belongs to this image more so.
Well, there's no ponds in that one.
No, it's gone out of sync. I'll go back to this image. This is what the reading is for this image. An interesting, colourful scene, but a bit washed out, presumably due to the mist in the air. Improving the contrast, e.g. by pulling down the black end of the scale, can have a striking impact on making the colours pop again. We've done that one. Fog bow.
A photo. Oh.
An interesting scene that many people either don't notice or don't try to capture, nicely balanced across the composition. I see you were shooting in manual, but the limitations of that camera's lens may have meant you couldn't stop down anymore. If you'd managed a slower shutter speed, there might have been a hint of movement in the car, which would subtly improve its place in the composition. Fisherman's Peak framed. This is a long one, bear with me. The composition has a lot of promise here, but the washed out white areas make it feel over-processed. Partly this is digital processing trying to compensate, and you ending up with huge halos around the rail posts. The white border on the left is unfortunate too. Your camera can take bracketed exposures, and it might be worth taking a series of 3 shots on motor drive, so you have different brightness images all taken at the same camera location. If you were to feed those into Lightroom's HDR function, which is high dynamic range for those that don't know, especially if they were RAW/NEF format, you might be surprised at how neatly you can manage to keep detail in the posts and the background. You had stopped down to F13 in search of depth of field. Be aware that if you then focus on the foreground tree, that more of the depth of field will be to the distance than to you. It may be that you could focus manually even closer and improve the clarity of those posts. If you use the bracketing in manual mode, the aperture should be unchanged between shots. Otherwise, aperture priority would be my choice. Be aware that near the center, we can see a small hair that's probably sitting on your camera's sensor, and only notice when you stop down that far.
Yeah. There you go.
Hooded robin. At that focal length, you have limited depth of field. Be aware that the body has ended up sharper than the face. Also be aware that if you manage to stop the lens down slightly, e.g. f7.1 or f8, it can help with sharpness. Obviously, a good camera support helps with the slight loss of shutter speed, but at least the bird wasn't moving. Everything's a compromise with these shots. We wish the background wasn't so noisy. We wish the bird had been somewhere without those branches across the tail, etc. But overall, it's nicely done.
Need to talk to that bird.
Island Trader. It's always interesting to see the Island Trader come in and unload. Your composition's working well with the mountain in the background and the jetty leading up to the left. I say up, it does look very strange with the almost 2-degree tilt. The horizon is nowhere near level, which can make everything feel off balance. This got a commended, and it's Jenny Skews.
Well done, Jenny.
Kitten, a beautiful face which grabs our attention. Do be aware that the out of focus object in the background merges with the cat's backside somewhat, leaving confusion in the viewer's mind as to what's going on back there. If it was simpler back there, your viewers will just scan across it and just return back to those beautiful eyes. Another commended by Rhonda.
Well done, Rhonda.
Mother and baby. Simple and effective with the mono treatment, avoiding the eyes getting dragged to colourful things like dummies, which might otherwise dominate the image. Native hibiscus. This could be an image of a hibiscus with a bee in it, but maybe especially because the white centre has lost a little bit of contrast. It could also be a picture of a bee that happens to be visiting the flower. Either way, it's effective.
Commended for Joanne.
Hey?
That's a commended for Joanne, isn't it? Oh, no, it's hibiscus. Sorry. Ignore me.
Not on my list.
No, you're right. I'm getting carried away there.
Who's reading this? You or me?
Yeah, sorry.
Old boat shed. That old shed was definitely seen better days. Sorry if I keep hesitating. Some of these aren't quite in proper English. It actually reads, the old shed was definitely seen better days, but the image just does feel overworked, with the sky unevenly darkened around the trees, lighter and darker bits of distant water, etc. People watching. The composition works well with an effective story. This is commended for Joanne. Oops, there's a little bit more to go with that one. Do be careful about the chromatic aberrations from the lens. Correcting for those does actually make a significant difference to the overall colours. Port Douglas Dawn. A simple and effective composition. It is somewhat soft, but that's probably always going to be a challenge with that lens and aperture. Okay, I think we have, again, it's gone back out of sync again. People keep putting ones in front of the same names. This one's actually image Port Douglas Dawn #1. So I'll read this one out. Please colours. I'm guessing that should be pleasing colours and an interesting scene. Be careful with your horizons. A 1 degree tilt might not sound like much, but it can have a big visual impact. This got a commended, and it's one of Frank's. You all there still?
Yep.
Yep.
Okay, just asking. Frank got a commended, no one commented.
Well done, Frank.
Well done, Frank.
I know he's not here, but we are recording this. This one is Port Douglas Dawn, a simple and effective composition. It is somewhat soft, but that's probably always going to be a challenge with that lens and aperture. Port Douglas Low Tide, an interesting scene with layers leading us deeper into it. Only about 2/3 of a degree tilt, but be aware that due to perspective distortion, the roof of the building is probably not meant to appear level. And this is a commended for Frank.
Well done,
Well
Frank.
done, Frank.
An interesting pose. We could almost imagine a warrior wielding a sword in a challenge to the oncoming wave. Overall, very effective. This is Will's highly commended.
Well done.
Will.
Well,
Yeah.
Lovely.
Rawnsley Bluff. The tree is central and it looks like you're trying to feature it, but the trunk merges into the background hill a bit. Sometimes a combination of selective focus as well as moving closer, which could also make the tree protrude further into the sky, might help it stand out. I would be tempted to experiment with crops omitting the trees poking in from the sides, making it more just about the tree and the background bluff. Renison Bight, a simple scene which seems to be mainly about the stand of trees.
Nice.
I would consider cropping a strip off the bottom to avoid some of the stones in the lower left. Little things like that to simplify the image can have a surprising impact. Rusty. A colourful scene. I do wish it wasn't cropped quite so tight to the handle at the bottom though. This is Jenny's and this is a commended.
Well done, Jenny.
Well done.
Sailor's warning. Do be aware that the reflections of that sign in the centre do give our brains a strong signal about which way is up. You've got a tilt of most of a degree to the left going on here. Other than it's a fascinating scene.
It's yours, isn't it?
Scallop shell. A wonderful image. I would be tempted to crop off some of the blurred foreground though. Also, once I'd taken the shot, I might reach in and carefully remove some of the sand from the top of the shell and maybe then wet it again slightly. A little bit of gardening like that can, like other things I've mentioned, have surprising impact. This is Ken Anderson's highly commended.
Well done, Ken.
Well
Well
done.
done, Ken.
Sea of colours. It doesn't matter that the left of the frame is probably up. You ended up with a very pretty abstract play of colours. This is Will's, another highly commended.
Well done,
Well done,
Will.
Will. Well done.
ooh,
Silhouette on Lake Mulwala. Simple and quite effective. To be aware that the reflections of shiny features on the back of the neck have affected how the silhouette processing has cut the line. It might be worth reworking that area slightly so that the resulting silhouette didn't stutter so much. I wouldn't just draw a new line in. I'd probably change the contrast of the underlying image a little bit in those areas to help the solarize, etc. function to find a better line. Silos at sunset. The detail in the image is suffering a bit. The right side may have had to be brightened, and that will always accentuate noise. But overall, the composition and story work well. Smile. It doesn't feel like a smile to me, more like a face you don't want to mess with. It's not a criticism though. The background has been worked a bit, areas darkened, etc. And the earth salt is effective. I'm guessing that should be re-salt is effective. But I'd be careful to not overdo it. As is, I might be tempted to do some spot removal, healing on the yellow in the lower right, the bright leaf in the upper right, and the dot reflection of the green thing just above and to the left of the head. Squawking, a great capture of an action shot. Hindsight is 20/20 vision, but these always look better when there's not a twig, power pole, in brackets, sticking out of the subject's head. A challenge to deal with in the moment though. Summer in Norway. The constant colours of the Norwegian buildings, especially up north, and seen in vistas like this from Hurtigruten ships, forgive the pronunciation, always contrasts well against the snow. The reflection nicely balances the hill too.
Oh, thanks.
Last cottage. Sutherland Bay. I like working with long exposures like this, but there is a lot of scene on the sides which might not be contributing a lot. I'd look at some slight crops, and if you go back there again, maybe slightly different camera position to make the interesting rocks and waves a stronger part of the composition. Sunset between storms, almost apocalyptic, certainly keeps us looking and exploring for a while. This is Ken Anderson's again, highly commended.
Well done, Ken.
It's excellent.
Yeah.
3 in a row. My first impression was underexposed. You don't want to blow out the white feathers, but I think it could be stronger if we saw a hint of texture in the dark heads. I think this might work better with a pano crop to reinforce the line of birds. Twilight Bay Esperance, interesting artwork, although the pixelation of the sky, which looks like it would have had interesting details, seems a little strange compared to the detail preserved in the rocks in the centre. I'd probably correct the tilt by about ½ a degree. This is the lucky last, Water Garden. Very simple and pleasant good afternoon on the scene, complemented by the blue background. Do be aware that especially when you step back and look at a similar view, the vignetting you've applied there is quite heavy and uneven, making that vignette a bit subtler overall could be stronger. Well done to everybody.
Thank you, Gary.
Well done. Thanks, Gary.
I think we've really learnt about horizons and slight tilts from that.
Oh, yeah.
And also as birds, making sure that they don't have anything sticking behind their heads or twigs in front of them. I don't know how you tame them.
Just need to move a little bit tonight, you know.
Got to be quick.
It's always interesting to see a judge's comments because, you know, when you look at tiny little details that stick out to a new observer, you know, like a person in a sunset, which you didn't even see before, or a little bit of leaf or, you know, something like that. It's quite fascinating to hear a judge look at your image and provide feedback on something that you really hadn't sort of thought about.
A hair on the lens.
The hair on the lens, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I thought I was pretty good on horizons. I'm always straightening horizons, but he reckoned mine was a bit crooked. He's probably right, you know, just like 1 degree or something. It does make a difference.
Yeah. And that's the valuable thing of getting the feedback, I think, is, you know, someone saying it might only be 1 degree out. It's not like a 6 degree or something, but it just means that to a casual observer or someone that's looking at it for the first time, they see it.
Well, they don't see that. What he's saying is that it makes them feel uneasy, as if there's something not right. They might not even notice it's the horizon.
Yeah.
But sort of psychological imbalance or something.
Like that waterfall one, like, you know, the garden one with no horizon, it was the waterfall. Apparently,
Yeah.
it wasn't. I wouldn't have known, but it wasn't right.
But I think what Jenny was saying makes sense, is that you look at it and think there's something not quite right without knowing that it was the horizon.
Good.
Any other comments from that? David certainly gave a lot of detail, which will be published both on the website and on our Facebook page and the newsletter as well. Okay, so things that are coming up. We've still got our overnight excursion on the 18th of October. We'll be staying at an Airbnb, Cedar and Stone, and we've still got 3 vacancies, I believe, that if anyone wants to come.
That's right, Jenny, but the price is not as high as we've stated. It's $105, and that includes the $5 or whatever for the barbecue tea. So it's only 105 all up.
Okay, which is wonderful.
Yep. But we still need 3 more. So, yes, and their deposit of $70 when they book.
We've got 1 spare seat left if anyone wants a lift.
2 spare still, isn't
With Joanne, we've got Joanne.
So this is to coincide with the Ballarat Biennale that's running in that week, and the intention is to go to that. Plus, Diane Davies going to organise some outings for us while we're there. So it should be a really interesting few days.
Full of laughs and photography.
Yeah, might get Susan on the ground taking a photo again.
And leeches and
Leeches?
Leeches, no thanks, Lynn. I'm not coming.
I don't think you get leeches in Ballarat.
No,
Just as
we
well.
we had leeches at Marysville.
Mm.
Yeah, they love me.
yeah.
Just carry a bit of salt, that's all you need.
Oh, Lynn. Oh, yeah.
Oh, the other thing is the way that the Airbnb is set up is they have the bedding arrangement is like 2 singles that they can either put together for a couple or separate for 2 singles. So we won't have to do the sharing of beds with some of the members like we did at Marysville. Not that that was a problem.
We all survived.
We did, didn't we? But it's a beautiful Airbnb, and I look forward to going and stay there.
Can't wait.
So the Carinya aged care, Lynn's got quite a few photos ready to hand over to Carinya. I've got to put mine in yet. I think you're only waiting for me at this stage, aren't you, Lynn?
Rob was going
And
to put
Rob.
some in. I haven't got any from Rob.
So what we're doing here is the aged care is going to display some of our works for us, and people can put the work up framed, and you can either put it up for sale or just decorate their walls potentially about 6 months, 6 to 12 months, where they get something a bit more interesting to look at. So it's up to the individual photographer as to whether they want to sell them or not. And
Good advertising for the club.
it is good advertising for the club. It's a nice community thing to do, and if the photographer wants to earn some money, there's an opportunity there. So we're asking people to put, their title of the photo and the price and an email address for the photographer, and it to be framed in a A3 size frame. So if you've got any queries, either ask myself, Lynn, or Frank. Frank was coordinating the whole thing. And also the first weekend in October, one of our members is organising the Phillip Island World Vision Flower Show and photography exhibition, which we support. And photos are actually submitted on the Friday and exhibited on the Saturday. So they're from 1 to 4 on the Fridays for the entries, and then all day Saturday. And then you can pick the photos up after that. And it's just a fundraiser.
$2 per entry.
Yeah, $2 per entry is a donation towards World Vision. So photos are presented on mat boards, and we were involved in it a couple of years ago, and it was quite a good little exhibition. There were a lot of photos that we put in. How many do you reckon there were?
Oh, I can't remember now, Jenny.
Can't remember.
Yeah, there was quite a lot though, which was good.
Yeah.
What date was that, Jenny?
So it's the first weekend of October.
Okay.
So the 1st of October is the Friday, and the 2nd is the Saturday, where they have it open for the exhibition. I took some of my flowers there a couple of years ago, and I had too many photos and got told off for saying it wasn't the Royal Melbourne Show, and what did you think you were doing? Oh, she was just doing a tongue in cheek, but I had these beautiful, and Gillian would appreciate this, a big bucket of coccinnias.
Oh.
And she said, I said, oh, have you got vases at all? And she said, it's not the bloody Melbourne Show, and just leave them in the bucket. And I said, I'm not leaving my beautiful coccinnias in a blue bucket. Mind you, there wasn't that many flowers to compete with, but it was a bit of fun. Okay, so that's next month is, we're actually submitting the photos for Tell a Story, so they should be all into Gary at least yesterday or at latest today. And Daryl Whitaker is the evaluator for the month, the judge for us. And our challenge is night photography, which will be an interesting thing to do.
Jenny, have you contacted Daryl? Are we going to have a workshop on astrophotography?
I haven't contacted Daryl, but I will, and see if we can organise the time to do that.
Good.
Jenny, the night challenge, when would that need to be in by?
So that's in it'll be the, what's the date? It'll be the end of August, just before our meeting.
5th of September.
5th of September. Thank you, Lynn. So basically our meeting's the first Monday every month, and all the submissions are due the Sunday before the first Monday of the month.
No, that sounds good. Yeah, because I do have some night shots I could probably pop into it. So
okay,
just need to know where, what your details, how big you need them to be, and things like that.
Details be in the newsletter, Graham.
Perfect. I'll have a look.
And there's some on the website.
I'll have a look and.
Yeah. Okay. AGM, Jenny.
Yes, the AGM will be in our what date was it going to be again? Sorry, Lynn.
It's the 6th, I think, isn't
The
it?
6th, yeah, the same as our meeting. So basically, we'll need to have some nominations for positions. Unfortunately, Lynn has done her 3 years of secretary, which has been a wonderful job that she's done. So we'll be very sad that she will can't stand for the position. But we hope for her to stay on in the committee. So we'll combine that with our regular meeting, and all the notices will be going out, if not already.
I've sent a notice out already.
Oh, thank you. With the nomination form. So anyone that wants to join the committee is most welcome. And anyone who wants to hold a position is also most welcome.
All positions are vacated.
They are all vacated. Okay, so that's all I had for this month. Is there any other questions?
No.
I don't think so.
Right.
Let's hope we'll be back face to face in a month.
Yeah, so this meeting we were trying to meet face to face, and when we read the actual Premier's guidelines, it said that you could have up to 100 people, but then it had to be groups of 10, so we couldn't quite work out how we could do that. I think it was more organised for restaurants and things where you can sit around a table. So we decided we'd be cautious, but Victoria is looking very promising, so I'm hoping that we can meet face to face next month.
So long as we close the Murray.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yes. They don't understand lockdowns north of the Murray.
No, not at all.
Mm.
We have to get Theo back home though.
Yeah. Well, when I talked to him, he said, oh, well, I'm feeling confident, but we've got to come through New South Wales. And I'm going, yeah, that's a bit tricky. Because he's driving with a caravan.
Yeah.
Yeah,
He
it's a big
probably
road.
has to isolate for 14 days when he gets back, does he? Don't
Well,
know.
it depends on the rules. I mean, when you look at the border crossings and, who's even allowed to come in at this stage, it's very tricky.
No quick trips to Sydney, Jenny.
No, luckily I've done a few this year.
Our grandkids are growing.
Yes.
They're not going to recognise us when we get up there.
Or they could be like my little granddaughter last year with the big lockdown, when she first saw me face to face after not seeing me when I was virtual. She just looked at me as to say, there's something wrong. You look right, but you don't quite look right.
She
You
didn't
need to go on
burst out crying.
screen.
He's working out what three-dimensional was all about.
Yeah, well, three-dimensional Nana.
That's right.
Very good.
So thank you very much, Gary, for organising this. You're an absolute marvel.
Yeah, thank you, Gary.
Yes, thanks,
Right.
Gary.
Don't go anywhere soon.
In the year I'm resigning from the committee.
No.
Not allowed. It's not allowed.
Definitely not. You haven't been there for 3 years.
No.
No, it says all positions are vacant. So
Yeah, but you're not an official position.
no, true.
You can go on forever.
Okay.
Curly one.
Good to see everyone.
Okay.
Yes.
Thanks, everyone.
Sorry.
Yeah.
And welcome, Graham.
Thanks, everybody. It's
Graham.
been a good meeting.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Bye now.
Bye.
Bye, all.
Bye.
Hi, Lynn.
Bye.